Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, November 26th. I hope everybody's having an incredible day so far. We have a big NFL show for you. Obviously going to cover, of course, the Monday Night Football game, but of course, every Tuesday we do our power rankings 32-1. It was a tough week this week to do the power rankings, I'm not going to lie to you, especially in that middle section from about 7 to 17 or 18 was maybe the toughest that I've had to do all year. But we'll go over all of them as well as winners and losers from week 12. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, November 26th. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show today with some NFL power rankings. And starting off right away at number 32, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars were idle this week. They were on a bye. Still, they did not make a coaching change, something that I'm a little bit surprised by, although as time continues to march on with this organization, I am less and less surprised with every week that Doug Peterson continues to be there. Doug Peterson went out and said that he made some changes in-house, not going to come out and say what they are. Positive news, Trevor Lawrence, their star quarterback, franchise quarterback, apparently had a couple of practices in there. There were reports that he was potentially going to be out for the season, and we've seen how disastrous this squad has been with 2 weeks under Mac Jones. The difference is crazy. They score 6.5 points per game in the 2 weeks that they've had Mac Jones. That is less than a touchdown per game. That is crazy. 13 total points. Not good enough. Obviously, they weren't winning many games with Trevor Lawrence, but the offense was at least able to move. They were able to hit the weapons on the outside. The running game was at least a little bit effective at times, right? Without him, this is the worst team in football. That defense is not good enough, and there are not a lot of shining moments for this team. The Jacksonville Jaguars are the worst team in football, number 32. A very close second worst team in football, though, and that is the New York Giants. Honestly, you could very easily convince me to switch where I have these two. I almost did when I go through these lists. I flipped them back and forth about 30 times before I eventually decided to put the Giants at 31. I just think overall, the level of talent on this New York Giants team is at a slightly higher caliber than it is on the Jacksonville Jaguars. You take a look at especially that defensive line, and it hurts that they don't have Azeez Ojulari anymore, but this is a team that is very, very talented. Tommy DeVito did not work. Obviously, getting rid of Daniel Jones is a big story, and the Giants organization is currently getting crucified, as it should be, for its mismanagement of the entire organization, not just Saquon Barkley, but everything that they have done over about the last 10 years has really come and hit them in the face. It hasn't worked. They need a change. The Giants are near the bottom of the league in almost every single metric. Offense, defense, special teams. They need to switch now. We'll see what happens on Thanksgiving, but I'm not very optimistic for that game. At number 30, we have the Raiders. They've now lost both of their quarterbacks this season. They're down to Desmond Ridder. I don't know what they're going to do. Aiden O'Connell apparently could come back this week from his broken thumb. Maybe this is just perfect timing. Gardner Minshew wasn't playing the greatest football, but neither was Aiden O'Connell when he was healthy and when he was in there. Gardner Minshew won the job over Aiden O'Connell anyway. This is a Raiders team that is just bad. It's not going to get any better this season. Brock Bowers for Rookie of the Year, potentially. I think that's a thing we should start having. I think he's definitely in second place at least. He's definitely above Bo Nix. But ahead of Jaden Daniels, I don't know. But this is a Raiders team that, again, it just doesn't have a lot of hope. Tank for next season, get a quarterback, figure it out. These bottom three teams are just leagues worse than everybody else right now. At number 25, we get into that. Number 29, we get into that next tier. The New England Patriots kick it off there, and I hate to punish them that much for a loss, a division loss, most importantly, but a division loss where Drake May just continues to do everything he can, Herculean efforts to keep them in games despite the rest of the roster just not holding up. That offensive line is terrible. We all knew it was going to be. That defense is awful. They don't have anything. But Drake May continues to show that he is a guy that they can build around. And next season and the next couple seasons after that are not going to be fun for him. But at least the Patriots have hope. At least the Patriots have a quarterback that they can build around. And I'm not sure if those other three teams can say the same thing. At 28, we have the Dallas Cowboys. A huge win for the Cowboys. Stopped their skid, continues the Washington Commanders skid. It was a crazy way to end that game. 2 kick return touchdowns in the final 3 minutes for them by 2 different players, one on an onside kick. That one probably they should not have gone in on. They could have ended the game a lot more comfortably if they had just gone down after recovering that onside kick. Doesn't matter. They got a win. It was a huge win for the Dallas Cowboys against a division rival on the road, most importantly. That is a huge game for Cooper Rush, and maybe they can get something going. Their defense on third down and long has been incredible as of late, although that's not much of an accomplishment. Your defense should be good on third down and long in the NFL. The Cowboys have been better. They really have. They're still not great, and they're too injured to really turn this season around. I'm worried. Reports are that Mike McCarthy might get extended, and that would be a huge mistake for the Dallas Cowboys to make. I hope for their sake that they do not make that, and someone stops Jerry Jones from extending Mike McCarthy. But the Dallas Cowboys, they move up a little bit after a big win to 28. At 27, we have the Titans, and I know they got a huge win against a division rival, against the Houston Texans, a game that they needed, a second game in a row where Will Levis has actually looked pretty good. This is a huge win for them. The offense was working. The defense wasn't working as much, but they came up with huge stops when they needed to get those huge stops, and they beat a Houston Texans team that is struggling right now. They're sliding pretty far. They're not having the kind of season that you expected a Houston Texans team to have. For now, the Titans still have a lot of issues. They're still near the bottom of the league, but this is a huge win for momentum. It kind of takes them out of where they wanted to be if they wanted to get a quarterback, but as far as riding with Will Levis, I think he's starting to show you something that maybe it's not time to give up on him yet. There's a lot of problems with this Titans roster, and I don't want to put it all on Will Levis, although for sure he does have some kinks he needs to fix. He's a gunslinger, but he doesn't quite have that touchdown upside that a guy like Jordan Love has been able to have with his gunslinger mentality. He needs to get there if he's going to be any kind of productive. For now, he's not, and the Titans are at 27. 26, the Jets, another team that was idle this week on a bye. This time, though, they just continue to crumble. Reports were that Aaron Rodgers wanted to come back in 2025, and the regime did not want him back. He goes out on the Pat McAfee show today and says, hey, I'm not sure if I want to come back in 2025. We'll have to find out. And he says he wants to play for the Jets if he does play at all. That's going to be a huge factor for them. This was a team that was built to win now, and they're not doing it. So obviously this year can be categorized as an absolute failure. Not many positives. They went all in, and now they're near the bottom of the league. They don't have that much of a future. They don't have too many draft picks if in the situation where it all goes wrong. Now, do I think it's the worst thing in the world for Aaron Rodgers to retire next season? Probably not. I do think he still has something left in the tank. I don't know what's going on with him this year, but I think if he dedicates himself to football in the offseason, kind of, stops being that in the spotlight, go do crazy things in the offseason kind of guy and gets back, he'll be fine. I don't know if he should retire. I don't know if that's best for the Jets. That's something he needs to figure out on his own. I still think he's got a little bit of juice left, but we'll see. I bet you the Jets don't take him back anyway. It's going to be a hard rebuild for them. We'll see what happens. At 25, we have the Chicago Bears, a third straight brutal loss for the Bears. Caleb Williams playing incredible ball right now. I am a huge fan of Caleb Williams. I know we keep making these huge sweeping takes about Caleb Williams, but he continues to play great football since Shane Waldron has been gone. This is not his fault. The Bears defense seemingly has fallen off of a cliff. Their morale is gone, and it happens. We see that happen a lot with bad teams with good defenses, right? It starts off great. The defense is flying around. They're making all the tackles, making all the plays, and then they just can't do it anymore. It's so high effort, so high energy, and if you're going to do that for a team that's losing, a team that's just not getting it done, it happens seemingly at least once a season with one of these teams, and it just happens to be the Bears this year. There are plenty of positives, but as long as Matt Eberflus is there, as long as they have that same coaching staff, it's just not going to be it. They need to get out of there. The Chicago Bears are at 25. 24, it's the Colts. This is a team that I'm really high on, but you also have to admit they have the issues, right? Anthony Richardson, after coming off of one of his best games, maybe his best game of his entire career in last week, he goes out there and has another stinker. A classic Anthony Richardson game, 50% from the 50% completion percentage. He doesn't quite get it done on the ground the way that you need him to, and they don't get into the end zone at all. That's just what you're going to get. That Colts offense is broken. They need to get some consistency. The defense for the Colts actually stepped up against a Lions team that will run the ball down your throat. Obviously, the Colts had one of the worst rushing defenses at the beginning of the season. I'm not saying it was great, but it was much improved, and I was impressed by how their performance went in this game. Still, a bad loss for them. The offense needs to get some kind of consistency. At 23, we have the Panthers. Speaking of offensive consistency, they've started to find it. How about Bryce Young? Bryce Young played maybe his best game as a pro this year against one of the best defenses in the entire league. The Carolina Panthers obviously are not a good team. And maybe I have inflated their rank a little too high, but they've got some momentum. They won 2 straight games, and then they nearly knock off the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions. That is a huge game for them, a huge game for Bryce Young, and I think he's starting to figure this offense out. He's getting more comfortable, more confident. The way he looked in the pocket avoiding pressure was huge for this game for the Carolina Panthers. I need to see more of that out of them. They're still hanging out in the 20s. Still not a huge fan of this team, but I love what Chuba Hubbard's been able to put together. I like some of the young weapons they've got. I hope Jatavion Sanders is okay. All reports are that he is. He took a scary injury landing on top of his head after getting flipped out of bounds. But the Carolina Panthers and Bryce Young continue to improve on what is a dead season, but a dead season that had no expectations to begin with. So they're doing what they need to. They're showing improvement, and I think it's a huge day for the Carolina Panthers, regardless of the outcome. At 22, we have the Cleveland Browns, a huge win in a snow game for them against the division rival Pittsburgh Steelers. That's now 4 out of 5 games in a row where they have beaten the Pittsburgh Steelers in Cleveland. That is huge for them. That's not something that they're used to having. The Steelers generally beat the Browns by a lot, but a snow game, Nick Chubb gets in the end zone twice. Good to see him back out there. He's still not all the way back to where he was pre-injury, but he'll get those efficiency numbers up. It's not easy to do it against the Steelers defense. Glad to see he gets in the end zone twice. Jameis Winston had a great game. He really did. He put together a huge performance in the snow. Not easy to do. Led a couple huge drives. All the offense kind of came as the snowfall became more heavy. It was a huge game for the Browns. Again, a season that's kind of lost. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not. They're not going to make any noise. They're not going to be bad enough that they're going to get a super high pick in the draft. But there is some hope in Cleveland, and you can see it start to take form. You can see them starting to build something when they have a quarterback that they like, that they want to play with, and when they get the run game going a little bit. This is a team that can be dangerous at times. At 21, we have the Saints. Obviously, they took down the Browns last time we saw them. They were on bye this week, so we didn't get anything new from them. But still, this is a Saints team that's been really good under interim head coach Darren Rizzi, 2-0. They continue to win football games. A team that I had proclaimed dead in the water, to be sent to the bottom of the league, the abyss, if you will, cap purgatory. They would be stuck there forever, and now they're seemingly going to find a way to win a couple games. And don't look now, but they're not out of that division race. Right now, they're just 2 games back of the Atlanta Falcons, 1 game back of the Bucs. This is not something that is over. They beat the Falcons already. They can come back and win this division, and it would be maybe the most New Orleans Saints thing ever to do to win this division after the way their season went, losing 7 straight games. It would be the most Saints thing ever. We will see, though. Saints at 21. At number 20, it is the Cincinnati Bengals, another team on a bye from last week. The Cincinnati Bengals, again, the problem is their defense. If their defense was even league average, if their defense was the 16th best defense in the league, they would probably have a reversed record. They would probably be 7-4 right now, maybe even better, as opposed to 4-7. Instead, you have MVP level plays from Joe Burrow, Offensive Player of the Year level plays from Jamar Chase, Defensive Player of the Year level plays from Trey Hendrickson, and yet they're not going to make the playoffs. Maybe they can go on a run. Maybe they can find a way for that defense to be better after this bye week, but they're going to need to go on quite the run, and they probably can't lose a game for the rest of the year. We'll see, though. It's going to be tough for the Bengals. They're at 20. At 19, it's the Falcons. This is a team that I want to believe in. I really do want to believe in this Falcons team. They are just way too inconsistent. You want to talk about teams that will show you a Super Bowl kind of contending effort one day. Maybe you see the Falcons against the Buccaneers. Then they show up and put a stinker up against the Broncos and the Saints the week before. They just don't seem to have it right now, and I don't know what it is. I don't know why they can't be consistently good on both offense and defense. That defense especially is really concerning. The defense never really has been that good. The offense is just inconsistent. They don't get any pressure on the quarterback. The secondary is not good enough to hold up. They leave wide open gaps. They just get torched through the air, picked apart. It's just not fair. This is not a great Falcons team. They had very high expectations, really. They're not living up to it. They're at number 19. At 18, it's the Commanders. And again, like I said, this is probably where it started to get hard for me. Spots 18-7. It was really hard. That 10-team stretch, I had a lot of trouble with the exact order. The Commanders at 18 honestly does feel a little low, but they've lost 3 straight games. And I understand it's 2 pretty solid teams. The Steelers, the Eagles, the Cowboys in there as well. 2 division games and a good Steelers team, but still, that's 3 straight losses. And I know the narrative with Cliff Kingsbury over there in that offense, but also just the defense is coming back down to earth, right? When they were in their win streak, when they were winning these games against, granted, kind of inferior competition, which is a good thing, you got to win those games. The defense was really stepping up and they were climbing up the ranks. But as I've been saying this whole time, as everyone knew coming into the season, that Commanders defense, especially that Commanders secondary, just isn't it. They go and they make that big trade for Marshawn Lattimore 3 weeks ago at this point. He has yet to see the field in a Washington uniform. I don't know when that's going to happen. That should really shore up their defense, and it's just not happened yet. He needs to come out there, and that might turn their season around. But for now, they're going to continue to fall. They're down to 18. And at 17, we have the Bucs. Big win in MetLife Stadium against a deflated and dead Giants team. Baker Mayfield does his thing. Bucky Irving goes for career-long yards. This is just a Bucs team that is not going to give up, and it's a fun team to watch. They love playing football. That's the vibes you get from them, and that is a very important quality to have in an NFL football team. As long as you're having fun, you're immediately going to be better out there, and the Bucs are just a fun team to watch. They get Mike Evans back. That is huge for them. He didn't have a great game, but that's because they kind of relied on the run game more than the passing game in this one. Still, though, the Bucs get a huge victory. Add a game. They're only 1 game back of those Atlanta Falcons right now, and I think they are the favorites to win that division, at least right now. The way that they're playing ball, they're the best in the NFC South. But let me know what you think of the first half. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to the second half of the NFL Power Rankings, 16-1, coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.